Today on Independent Wrestling Profiles, we're talking with Hollywood Cole. When did professional wrestling first get introduced to you?
Man, I was like 5 or 6, super young age. My dad was obsessed with wrestling, and he had this giant VHS collection, like Attitude Era stuff that I definitely shouldn't have been watching at the time. But that was my first introduction to wrestling. Like, I remember Jericho's debut. That was like a pivotal moment for me. I just thought the music and his outfit, the long, ridiculous blonde hair, and just the way he spoke, his mannerisms, just I was like, man, that guy's cool. Jericho definitely drew me into it for sure.
Yeah, was there any particular shows or matches that really appealed to you, or was it just the entirety of Jericho's career?
Pretty much the entirety of his career. I loved how he could just constantly reinvent himself, and I was always really drawn to the heels.
So was it always something that you just did with your dad, or did you progress to more of a social thing with friends as you got a little bit older or anything like that?
It was always just tradition, like me and my dad every Monday and Friday, we'd watch it together. You know, at the time, PG era, it was not cool to be a wrestling fan, so I very much kept it to myself at school and stuff like that. Yeah.
How does the evolution go to the point where you decide that you want to try it yourself? Some people, they phase in and out of fandom, and
Yep.
maybe there's a period of time in high school where it's not cool, but then they get back to it, and you actually took it an even step further, is that you decided that this was something that you wanted to do.
I got into amateur wrestling in high school. I was that kid who, even though I knew there wouldn't be, I was still hoping there'd be like a wrestling ring when I showed up. So that was like my first kind of introduction to wrestling. And then I ended up in university strictly and only to wrestle. I had no real passion for I ended up in like an art program. Didn't really know why I was there. Eventually one day in class, not paying attention, I was just scrolling through my phone and I stumbled across the Storm Wrestling Academy. And that's the first time I realized like maybe this is actually possible. Yeah, I just went for it. I dropped out of university, used my money for my second semester to put a down payment for my training, and yeah, I just went all in from there.
Oh, so you really gambled on yourself to do this because you were
Yeah,
parlaying all of the money you had. Did you just call them up and just start attending classes kind of thing?
yeah, pretty much. I went summer of 2018. I put the down payment probably like fall of 2017.
Okay, so you had a lot of extra pressure on your shoulders when you started. Do you kind of recall how it felt getting into training? Maybe was there any sort of hesitation, any doubt, or was it just pure excitement, hit the ground running? How did you feel actually starting?
I definitely had a lot of self doubt beforehand going into it just because of my size. I was like 130 pounds at the time, so skinny. But I knew like there was nothing else in life I wanted to do more than that. So I just went all in.
Was there any part of it that just felt natural to you that you were like, you know what, I'll figure all of this out, but this part, I got this?
Not at first. Later on, definitely like just being a heel and just being a much more arrogant version of myself that came very naturally. But at first, nothing in particular I thought I was very good at.
So, if you're facing all of these challenges and you're having difficulties, where do you find the extra motivation? Did you have any sort of support system? Did you have peers in the class that you guys work together? Like, where did you find that little extra bit?
I was very lucky where my class, we all got along like right away. All of us, we bonded like every weekend as a group, all of us. If there was any show between Calgary and Edmonton, we'd make the drive and just go help out, just pay dues and just make connections. And yeah, it was just the bond of like my class that really kept me motivated. It was such a great group of people.
Was this the type of class where you needed to be greenlit, or did it have like a specific end date?
So this was a 12-week program. So it was
Okay.
like summer of 18, like May to July.
Was it like right after that that you were able to start doing bookings? Did you have any matches during your training? Like, how did you actually progress to getting your first taste of in-ring action?
Like I said, with our class, we were making those connections every weekend. So we got lucky enough that I believe it's RCW, Real Canadian Wrestling. They booked us like I think a week before we graduated for just a Storm Academy Battle Royal. So it was all the classmates just in a quick little battle royal. So that was my first ever match. Once I moved back to the Maritimes, I had really no connections with anyone here. I just sent out emails everywhere I could, and I heard nothing for like 3 or 4 months. So that was kind of discouraging until out of nowhere, I got a message from Marcus Burke, and he gave me the opportunity to wrestle for UCW in Moncton. So that was my first kind of taste of wrestling here.
What do you remember about that first match? Your opponent, the crowd, how it felt? Do you remember if you were disappointed with your performance or elated and just ready to do the next one?
I remember for some reason being like super confident. I don't know why, but as soon as I thought I was gonna pop them for some reason, I remember breaking the curtain and then just all these people staring at me and like zero reaction. Like you could hear a pin hit the ground. Like just, I remember hearing some lady yell like, "Who are you?" So that was overwhelming, but it was just a quick squash match. That was my first taste of maritime wrestling.
How long was it before you started to get kind of more regular bookings where you could kind of rely on the phone calls coming in and get a little bit more of like a consistent routine so that you could further develop?
Pretty much immediately after that, actually. Marcus and UCW, they launched what was called UCW VIP, which was kind of like an NXT type thing, like a developmental for the younger guys. So we'd wrestle, they'd have like an hour show before the main show, like a pre-show type deal.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really where I started learning, just green guys against green guys. So none of us really knew what we were doing, but it was a first taste of wrestling in front of an audience.
So I've actually had the privilege to watch you perform a number of times, and I'm always blown away by both your in-ring work, but also your character work. Very over the top, obviously Hollywood Cole. There's almost like an arrogance to that heel character. It's very targeted. You know what you're going for there. Have you always kind of had an idea of like, when I get into wrestling, this is kind of the image I want to put forward, or this is the reaction I want to get out of the crowd?
It definitely evolved over time. Like I knew I wanted to be a heel for sure, because I was always drawn to the heels. Like I said, that's what I was passionate about. It was really when the pandemic hit, when the world all shut down, and I was just sitting at home, just had so much time to think. And I did these online seminars with Sebastian Swab from Smash Wrestling,
Okay.
and the whole point of them was basically everything you can improve on outside of actual in-ring stuff. It was all like on Zoom like this, right? And a lot of it was character based, and that's where I learned how important it was to have, a real character. That's where I came up with the whole Hollywood Cole thing. My favorite rapper, J. Cole, his nickname was Hollywood Cole, so I kind of
Oh,
stole that. And
okay.
I always wanted just to be like Jericho, right? Like early Jericho, really flamboyant, just ridiculous clothes, just over the top arrogance. Yeah,
It's kind of like, especially with the audience, you put forward an image of yourself where they're like, I just want to see him get his. But then they
for
see you
sure.
perform and you're like, oh, but he's really good, right? So it's
Right.
kind of
Yeah.
hard. Can I ask you a little bit about the development of the tag team that you currently work with quite a bit, the Hollywood Heathens? How did that come to be?
Me and Ethan, kind of a funny story. We actually went to high school together, but we just, for whatever reason, we never knew each other. We never ran into each other at any point. But we were both just quiet kids, very into wrestling, which is funny. And then a few years, I don't know, 3 or 4 years into my career, he kind of started training. Come to find out, we live on the same street. He's right down the road from me. So, we just started hanging out and going to the gym together and stuff. And yeah, he just became one of my best friends. And yeah, here we are together at Hollywood Heathens.
Was it just like a particular company that gave you guys an opportunity? Did you sit down and have a discussion and say, hey, let's try the tag team thing?
Well, eventually he started coming to UCW. Just, I believe he was reffing at the time, just paying
Okay.
dues, showing up, and just introducing himself type thing. And we spent so many hours together in the car that it was really just those car rides where we decided that we spent all this time together anyway. Why not spend it together in the ring, right?
Yeah, makes sense. So you've had an interesting career already. You've even been to different provinces. I know you were recently here in kind of my backyard in Ontario. Has there been any particular highlights for you so far?
I mean, last year, getting to do extra work for AEW was just surreal. That was huge. Very overwhelming, but just a phenomenal experience just to be backstage with like Edge and like my hero growing up, like all these different people I watched on TV. That was huge. So that was definitely the highlight so far, I'd say.
What is next for you on your bucket list? Is there any particular companies that you're hoping to work with next? Any opponents that you want to cross off the bucket list?
Yeah, I definitely want to go outside the Maritimes more. I want to come to Ontario. I want to work for like the Destinies, the Pro Wrestling Ontarios, the Seaway Valleys. I also would love to break into kind of the New England scene in the States, like WFA and like Limitless Wrestling Open, and just wrestle in front of new audiences.
What about opponents?
Guy I'm a huge fan of is Von Vertigo. That's a
Okay.
guy I've been watching just on the internet who, again, another smaller guy who's just proven that size does not matter. He's just, yeah, that's a guy I definitely think I'd love to share the ring with and just learn from. Yeah, it's a long list, man. I have a huge bucket list, to be honest. Just a few other names I'll throw out there, like Gabriel Fuerza. That's another guy I'd love to be in the ring with.
Maybe the Hollywood Heathens could face off against Fight or Flight one day.
That is our dream match, man. We talk about that all the time. Yeah, that would
Oh,
be our dream tag match for sure.
oh, okay. Well, my next question was going to be about dream matches. So we got the tag team one with Fight or Flight. What's the dream match for you? Don't limit yourself to reality. It doesn't matter how it happens, where it happens. Who's the absolute dream opponent that's still lacing up their boots right now?
Yeah, it's Jericho, 100%, man. That would be just a huge honor. It's a real moment to watch a guy who just inspired me to do this in the first place. Yeah,
Would you be more excited for the in-ring or the on-mic part?
both, man. Everything, even just putting the match to just being with him backstage and talking to him, just picking his brain and everything.
Yeah. Do you have anybody that you currently go to for advice and pick their brain and just kind of just like a mentor almost even?
Yeah, I mean that's a long list too. I mean, Justin Newhook and Connors, they're like the big brothers I never had. I go to them a lot. Same with like Moondog Dylan Davis and Cody Blay, like the whole MMW crew. They've kind of been my mentors for sure.
If you were to step out of the ring for a minute, what kind of things do you like to do to pass the time?
I'm a pretty boring dude, to be honest, man. If I'm not just here hanging out with my girlfriend and my cats, like I'm at the gym, or again, I'm just watching wrestling. That's my whole life, man.
Like it fully consumes you at this point?
100%. I think it has my whole life. It's all I've ever wanted to do for as long as I can remember, man.
Any sort of on the road tale that might have happened that you could tell me about?
Yeah, here's not too long ago. We had a North Pro show during that. I can't remember what hurricane it was. There was a hurricane not too long ago, a really big one. It was myself, Ethan, Nick Strong, and Dick Darren coming back from the show. And I remember Nick was driving, which is already scary. I remember there was a stop sign like laying across the road, and Nick's just like flying, and we're all kind of looking at each other like, is he just gonna drive over this? And sure enough, he just drove right over it. And later on, we stop at the gas station. We get out to pump gas, and we look, and the tire is like completely destroyed. And we're in the middle of this hurricane at this gas station in the middle of nowhere. We're making all these phone calls to tow trucks to see if anyone will come out. No one will come out because it's a hurricane. So we ended up just sitting there for like 16 hours attempting to sleep in this car together.
Oh,
The
wow.
hurricane and just like things flying around, the car shaking. Yeah, that was a very, very long night. We were very sick of each other by the morning.
I would imagine that would be a pretty intimidating scenario, like if the car is even shaking and I mean,
Yeah, oh yeah.
hurricanes in the Maritimes are no joke.
Yeah, definitely not. It was a long night for sure.
Did you ever have a moment in a locker room where you were starstruck by somebody else that was there with you?
At AEW, the first time I laid eyes on Edge, because other than Jericho, Edge was like my hero growing up. And I remember I was so intimidated by him. I wanted to talk to him all night. I never got the chance until I ended up doing the boys extra spot with Dalton Castles. So I had the whole ridiculous like peacock outfit on. When I finally got to go shake his hand, yeah, I remember he just had this look on his face. I could tell he's trying not to laugh because I look so ridiculous.
So it was while you were still in the wardrobe.
Yeah. Right after I put it on, that was finally the opportunity. I got face to face with him and got to shake his hand, of course. Oh yeah, mask on and everything. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So are you a big gym guy?
I wasn't until I got into wrestling. Like all throughout my amateur wrestling career, I was just that arrogant kid who thought like cardio was all that mattered at the time, which is definitely not the case. I started working out like right before I went to Lance's. So I was like 135 pounds, just the skinniest kid. And then it was when the world shut down, the pandemic hit, that I really realized like if I'm ever going to be taken seriously, like I got to pack on 40, 50 pounds,
Okay.
So, and especially in the last year, since I got the AW opportunity, I started training with Jason Boa, who's another local wrestler around here. But he's a personal trainer. He went to school for kinesiology and everything. He's a wicked personal trainer. When I started with him, I was about a buck 60, buck 65, and I'm like 180 now. So he's helped me a lot too.
Oh, wow. Do you have like a favorite cheat meal?
Yeah, Popeyes. I'm a big Popeyes guy, and I'll get, especially the biscuits. I'll eat like 4 of those biscuits. So good. Yeah.
I like to ask people in the Maritimes, if I was to come out to, Nova Scotia and check out a show, is there a spot that you would recommend that's kind of like a best kept secret of the Maritimes?
Freeman's in Halifax. That is like usually the go to place for all of us after a show. I think it's more the atmosphere than anything, to be honest. It's kind of that old school pub kind of feel.
Oh, that's awesome, man. What is like the goal that you want to achieve out of an audience that sees you perform? Like if I was to be in the audience at a show, what impression would you want me to walk out of that venue thinking about you?
So it's a couple things. Like wrestling for me, when I watched it, it was always just, it was very emotionally driven. Like I got sucked into the storylines and the characters, and it made me just forget about whatever else is going on in my life, right? And that's how I want people to feel when they watch me wrestle. Like I want them to hate me so much and want to see me get beat up so much that they're completely drawn into it. They're not worried about whatever hardships are going on in their life, right? And of course, when they leave, I want them to buy a ticket for the next show because they want to see me get beat up again, right? That's the goal for sure.
I meant to ask you this earlier, but I completely forgot. When you were coming up as a wrestling fan, as a young wrestling fan, did you have an opportunity to check out indie wrestling yourself, or was it mostly just like WWE on television and things like that?
So there was a local promotion in Fredericton at the time, like I want to say like 2010 to like 2013, 14-ish. I was going to those shows. That's where I seen Dick Durning for the first time. That's another guy who kind of ended up being my mentor later on. He was a huge inspiration of mine. And also Chip Chambers. First time I seen Chip Chambers wrestle, he was probably, again, like 130 pounds. He was a very small dude, but he was awesome. And seeing that's definitely a moment where I realized maybe this is possible. First time I seen Chip Chambers wrestle for sure.
Did the feel of being in the crowd and feeling the energy kind of help motivate that decision as well?
100%. Yeah. Like I remember Dick Durning's, his selling was so good. And he'd like make eye contact with me when he was selling. That was a huge thing for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't get that on television, right?
Yeah.
It's a much more intimate setting. And I don't even know if a lot of people necessarily compare the two when they get into performing, right? Because on television and even just larger arenas, it's a crowd of faces. But at an independent show, you can pretty much make out individuals and you can even
Yep.
communicate with them and meet them afterwards. How much does that mean to you to be able to interact with the audience, whether it's in a match just through gestures and facial expressions or at the merch table afterwards?
So for me being a heel, like I'm very much old school heel. I try to avoid the merch table. I want people to fully hate me. I want people to despise me, man. Like when I'm singling out people, it's obviously to get them angry, right? So that's yeah, I'm all in on the heel stuff for sure.
How do you find a balance then? Because you want people to hate you and you can behave a certain way, absolutely. But then there's always going to be those fans that are going to like you because of your in-ring work, right? And the better you get there, the harder you're going to have to work to get them to hate you on the mic. Like, do you find that to be a difficult balance, or is it just like, nah, I'll just let it happen?
I just let it happen, to be honest, man. Yeah, I try to avoid anything that'll give me like a positive reaction. Like I don't, you'll very rarely ever see me go on the top rope and do any type of fancy move off the top rope or anything. Like I just try to avoid anything like that that'll give a positive reaction. I always want that heat. I always want the negative reaction.
So you don't even go to the merch table that much?
Very rarely. I will with Ethan sometimes here and there, but I try my best to stay in character. I'm not the nicest. I just want to keep kayfabe alive as much as I can.
That's admirable, right? But I mean, especially with independent, like you could run into a fan in a grocery store, at the mall,
Yep.
right? Like this is especially with a smaller, close-knit environment in the Maritimes, things like that, you can run into people. Do you try to stay in character even in those situations at all times?
Somewhat, not quite to the extent that I would at like the merch table or anything like that. But maybe if say I run into someone in a grocery store and they bring up like a face or something, maybe I'll say I don't like them, something like that. You know what I mean? Insult them or whatever. Yeah. So like somewhat, you know.
So if you were to have an opportunity to go back and talk to a younger version of yourself, when you were just kind of starting to get into wrestling yourself, what piece of advice would you give yourself or even another young trainee that's getting into wrestling that would help them along?
Just put in the work outside the ring. That's the big thing, I think. And just keep your mouth shut and just listen, pay dues, and just pick brains.
So before we sign out, can you just once again let people know who you are and maybe where they can find you on social media if they want to just keep up to date with any upcoming events you got going on?
Yeah, I'm Hollywood Cole. You can find me on Instagram at legit Hollywood Cole. And you can also find me on Facebook, just the Hollywood Cole professional wrestler.
Awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you for tuning in to Independent Wrestling Profiles. Please help out the show if you can with a like, subscription, or review. We'll see you next time.